how you feel about Albie Shore? I gotta ask you about this. How you feel about the recent interview he did, where he said that he believed that Diddy was behind him having organ failure and him getting into a coma.
Um, I gotta be honest. I don't believe that. And this is the reason why I say this here. Um, I used to work out with LB Show at Lifetime in Las Vegas. LB Show is a very cool person. I'm talking about literally used to work out with LB Show in Las Vegas at Lifetime. If you know, you know. Um, how can a man be responsible for your liver failure when a man discarded himself out of your life? I feel like, and this is shout out to Albie Show, but this is facts. If a man, if you had a child with a woman, okay, and you worked at Uptown Records with Diddy, of course, all right. Yes, you had her before Diddy, of course. Diddy got in a higher position, brother, and used his authority and took your baby mama. Okay, he didn't just take your baby mama; he took your son. Okay, look at everything on an overall aspect. He took your son, raised your son a little more than what you could financially. No matter how much of a great father you are or not, did he still use his authority and his power to take your son, to take your woman, okay, and make it his own? How would you feel about that? Well, if I was LB Show, I feel like everything that happened in my life, and this is not me saying it, I'm just per saying, I would feel like everything bad that happened in my life was because I couldn't do this here. I couldn't do that there. I think LB Show stressed himself out so much off the things that he couldn't override from the Diddy and him taking his woman that he practically put himself in bad health. And that's just my opinion. I think LB Show stressed himself practically to death, to a coma. And that's the real truth. Because what can really Diddy do if he isolated your son, brainwash wise, I will say that, and your woman, per se, out of your life? You're stressed. You're sick about that, though. You're bitter. So at the end of the day, I don't believe that Diddy done that man nothing. I believe that LB Show stressed himself to death by not having the power, the authority, and the fatherhood to be able to do nothing about it. And that's just my facts. And that's facts because most of the times when women deal with a man and then she deal with a man that's more financially stable than the man that she dealt with and had kids, that man tends to override your fatherhood and take you out of the box. And sometimes that'll stress you to death. And that's what I believe happened. What do you think? Is what I'm saying? Does it make sense?
That makes sense, but there's ways you can look at it though. So I don't know. I mean, everybody got their opinion, but you believe that Diddy had Quincy brainwashed?
Definitely. Yeah, yes. Heavens yes. I know he brainwashed Quincy. At the end of the day, if you have the power, mind you, the power, it's not even about the money, the power to authorize, to have the authority, you dig, to be in a child's life more than the father, you can make that child look at his father like a loser. And that's exactly what I feel like Diddy did to Quincy, to Albie Show. That's facts because he has the power to do it. So I believe Albie Show stressed himself practically to a coma, stressed himself practically to death. And that's facts. And I used to play ball with Albie Show in Las Vegas at Lifetime. So I've been around him. I've seen his character. He seemed like a cool dude. Yeah, he seemed like a great person. But at the end of the day, to blame another man for your faults, you're bitter. Because I can't blame Diddy. I can't blame Diddy for the things or the choices that I made in my life now. You dig? But it could have been a better situation if he would have done right by me from what he owed me. Now, if LB Show would have been like, oh, Diddy owe me this and owe me that, courtesy of the work that I put in and things that I've done, and courtesy me not being able to have my finances off the time that I put in, that stressed me to a coma, or that stressed me to this, and I wasn't able to be a father to my son as much as I wanted to, and I wasn't able to have the opportunity or the chances to do what I needed to do because of what transpired from my business. I would understand that. But the fact that you can just lay back there and say a man done you something to put you in a coma, no, heavens no, I don't believe that. Because can't nobody do you nothing to put you in no type of illness, period, unless you allow him to. And I think LB Show was living in his head a little too much and put himself in a coma. And that's just how I feel because that's just what it is. How you feel about it, brother? Is what I'm saying making sense to you though? Because what assets do you have to get to Diddy if he don't want to be accessed? He isolated Kim. Yeah, he isolated Kim, Quincy, all of them. He isolated them. You couldn't get to them if you wanted to. Period. The stress of being isolated to not be able to be there for fatherhood can stress you to death because you don't have the power to. And that's what I believe happened. You stressed yourself to death, practically. Yikes.
How you feel about him saying that he's willing to testify against Diddy?
Of course he is because he's bitter. Any person that's willing to testify against Diddy and don't really quite have a rapport with Diddy after within a matter of 20 years are bitter people. Me, I'm from the streets. You dig? The universe can't tell me to testify against Diddy because it ain't the right thing to do. Do he owe me money? Absolutely. But is it to the point where I'm bitter and I'm gonna go testify to make sure he look like a bad person? Heavens no. Because at the end of the day, I'm still a man. I still got to get out here and do what I got to do. I've been fighting a case with Diddy for the past 8 years, a civil case to get my money, and I was never able to, beat them people ever in a civil court. I wasn't able to beat them people. You did because they had the money, the willpower, and the authority to whoop my ass. You dig? So at the end of the day, I went to that courtroom to get my freedom. You dig? I felt like, you know what? If I couldn't beat y'all in court, then I'm gonna beat y'all right here. And I'm gonna pop up right here. And y'all gonna see me right here. At the end of the day, I felt like justice was served for me. I really do. I felt like I served my justice. I don't even care about the money no more because I felt good showing up in front of them people. But at the end of the day, I just don't think LB Show should be testifying against nobody but his damn self. Is because he's bitter. And LB, say, brother, I don't feel no way about you. No, I'm shouting you out. And you know when I shout you out, I shout you out. You hear me? I'm shouting you out. I have no ill will towards you. I just feel like, you are a man. And I understand that you wasn't able to have the authority over your son Quincy, and it sucked and it was stressful. I get it, I do. But at the end of the day, to be bitter about it, to be willing to kick a man while he's down, when you just got when the universe and God blessed you and got you out of that coma, I think that's wrong. I think you need to focus on your path and let things be and forgive yourself and let things go instead of trying to kick a man while he's down because he took your old lady and your son because you never gave yourself a chance to get yourself together to be able to fight for your son or your woman if that's what you wanted. And that's just how I feel about it because that's the truth.
And what you think about Quincy supporting Diddy during his trial, even after the comments Albie Short made about Diddy?
That's his daddy. I told you, Quincy's brainwashed, intentionally or unintentionally. He's brainwashed. And you I mean, he was a child, you understand? So it's inevitable for him to be brainwashed to a man who took care of him and took care of his mother. You understand? Regardless of the situation, bruh. He took care of his mother. You understand? Put them in a nice lifestyle. You're gonna root for the person that financially benefited you and was there way more than the person that wasn't. I don't think Quincy give a lily mother about his daddy testifying against Diddy or he's saying about Diddy because he looked less of his father, regardless of how it sound. He looks less of his father, yet look just like his father. Ain't that fucking diabolical? Ain't that a kick in the head? How do you look less of a man that look just like you over a man that does nothing but brainwash and manipulate you and your mother? That's how I feel about that. I feel like intentionally or unintentionally, that kid had no other choice but to be there for Diddy because he felt like he owed him that. Facts. That's how I feel about that. He feel like he owed Diddy that. And as a child, growing up in that lifestyle, I would feel the same way, whether I'm brainwashed or not. It would take me a very long time to get out of that matrix, but I would feel the same way Quincy feel. I would feel like I owe my duty as a young man to the person who gave me the opportunities, molding the person I look like. If the person would had no authority to fight for me, that's how I would feel. I would feel like that person didn't even try, even if he did. And that's when the brainwash come in. You understand, Mighty? The brainwash come in when you look at your LB show, like you didn't even try to fight and be in my life. When the real truth of it is, Diddy made sure you couldn't be in his life. That's the that's